I was a loner, not because I hated people, not because I didn't fit in, but because I heard something they couldn't. A voice that never stopped whispering in my head, "You're not there yet." While the world slept, that voice got louder. It became the only sound I trusted. It became my truth. I didn't chase noise, I chased silence. Because in silence you meet the real you, the one without the mask, without the applause, without the crowd. Just you, your sweat, and your dreams staring back at you, daring you to keep going when no one is watching. Every night when the lights went out, I saw the court in my mind. I saw the game I wanted to play, the person I wanted to become. I didn't have a crowd cheering for me. I didn't have people telling me I was special. What I had was obsession, quiet, pure, painful obsession. People talk about hard work like it's a choice. It's not. It's a calling. It's the thing that drags you out of bed when your body screams enough. It's the thing that makes you miss birthdays, parties, and sleep, not because you want to, but because you have to, because something inside you refuses to settle for average. I didn't need validation. I needed repetition. I needed to fail again and again till failure stopped scaring me. Every miss, every loss, every doubt, I collected them. They were fuel. When people left, I stayed. When they quit, I whispered to myself, one more rep. I didn't need motivation. I had purpose. And purpose doesn't need company. Purpose walks alone. There were times I'd stand in the gym, no music, no cameras, just the sound of my breath echoing off the walls. My hands burned, my legs trembled, but I wasn't chasing comfort. I was chasing greatness. And greatness doesn't come when you're surrounded by comfort. It comes when you learn to be comfortable with pain. That's what being a loner taught me. That's what silence showed me. That pain is not your enemy, it's your teacher. You see, when you spend enough time alone, you start to understand the difference between noise and truth. Noise tells you to slow down. Truth tells you to keep going. Noise says you're done. Truth says you're just getting started. Most people never meet the truth because it lives where no one wants to go. It lives in the dark gym, the empty hall, the quiet morning when no one's awake but you. That's where I live. That's where the Mamba was born. People didn't understand it. They thought I was distant, obsessed, arrogant. But what they couldn't see was the fire inside me. A fire too sacred to be explained, too pure to be shared. That's the thing about being a loner. The world will never understand your silence until your silence becomes their soundtrack. They'll call you crazy until they need your blueprint. They'll mock your isolation until they see what it built. There's a certain power in being unseen. When no one's watching, there's no performance, only progress. You can fail without judgment, bleed without pity, rebuild without applause. That's the beauty of solitude. It strips away everything fake. It's just you and the work. No shortcuts, no pretending, just hours of invisible labor that no one will ever post about, no one will ever clap for. But that's exactly what makes it real. People think success is about talent. It's not. It's about being willing to do the boring, painful, lonely things that others won't. It's about showing up on days when motivation is dead. It's about choosing discipline over comfort, purpose over pleasure, silence over validation. That's the real grind. That's what separates those who dream from those who become the dream. I remember nights where I shot until my arms went numb. I remember mornings where my shoes were still wet from yesterday's sweat. And I remember looking around and realizing no one was there. Just me, the echo of the ball, the rhythm of effort, breath between every shot. That's when I understood I didn't need a crowd. My work would be the noise. My dedication would be the volume. My results would be the applause. People see the glory, but they never see the graveyard of effort behind it. The missed shots, the injuries, the failures, the tears, they all live in silence. And that silence, that loneliness, that isolation, it forged me. It stripped away the fear of judgment. It made me bulletproof to opinions. Because once you've survived being alone with your purpose, no critic can touch you. You've already fought the hardest battle, the one between you and yourself. I was a loner, and I'm proud of that. Because being a loner doesn't mean you're lost. It means you're found in purpose, in patience, in passion. It means you've learned to walk a road no one else wants to walk because you see something they don't. Every legend starts as a loner. Every great story begins in silence. That's where the voice of destiny speaks, softly but clearly. When I look back, I don't remember the trophies. I remember the empty gyms. I remember the sound of my shoes sliding on the floor, the heartbeat in my chest when I hit one more shot, the whisper in my head saying, again. That's what built me. That's what made my work speak louder than any crowd ever could, because crowds fade, cheers die. But work, real work, echoes forever. And if you ever find yourself alone, don't run from it. Don't fill the silence. Embrace it. Because that's where your transformation begins. That's where the fire starts. That's where you stop chasing applause and start chasing legacy. I was a loner, and that's exactly why the world remembers my noise. Because I didn't talk. I worked. I didn't show off. I built. And when the time came, I didn't need to announce myself. My work did it for me. There comes a point when loneliness stops feeling like a burden and starts feeling like a weapon. I reached that point. The silence that once felt heavy started to sound like music. The same emptiness that scared me started to feed me. Because when you're alone long enough, you stop waiting for the world to understand you and you start understanding yourself. I realized I didn't need them to believe in me. I needed to believe in the work. And once you believe in the work, you become unstoppable. The thing about being alone is it burns the illusions away. You stop pretending. You stop performing. You see who you really are. And that truth is powerful. It hurts, but it frees you. I looked at myself in the mirror so many nights and said, "You're not there yet." I said it again and again until my reflection learned to listen. That's when the real transformation began, not in the gym, not on the court, but in my mind. Because the game is always mental before it's physical. I started to understand that isolation is not punishment. It's preparation. Every time I stayed back to shoot alone, every time I studied film while others rested, every time I refused to quit and my body screamed, I wasn't isolating myself from the world. I was separating myself for greatness. That's what people don't get. Being alone isn't about rejection. It's about elevation. You have to go through the shadows before you can stand in the light. They didn't see the mornings I woke up before the sun, dragging my tired body to the gym. They didn't see the pain in my knees, the blisters on my hands, the hours of practice where the only sound was the bounce of a ball and the rhythm of my breath. They didn't see it, but I didn't need them to, because I knew the game rewards the unseen. The results always speak louder than excuses. And when the lights finally came on, I didn't have to shout. My performance did the talking. That's when I realized something deeper. You don't rise when the crowd cheers. You rise when no one's watching. You don't grow when people praise you. You grow when no one believes you can. That's what the grind teaches you. Every lonely rep, every unseen moment, it builds a version of you the world has never met. And when that version finally steps out, people call it talent. They call it luck. But it's not. It's silence turned into strength. I learned to fall in love with the darkness. I learned to smile when my muscles screamed. I learned that pain isn't the enemy. It's the language of growth. Most people quit because they want comfort, but greatness lives in discomfort. Every shot that missed, every moment that hurt, they all sharpened me. They all whispered, "You're getting closer." That's the kind of faith you build when you're alone, not in others, but in the process. The truth is, I didn't chase perfection, I chased progress. Because perfection doesn't exist, only improvement does. And improvement is born in repetition, not recognition. I didn't want to be seen, I want to be undeniable. That became my obsession, to become so good, so relentless, so prepared that even my silence couldn't be ignored. That's what Mamba mentality really means. Not talent, not ego, not fame, but an unbreakable relationship with work. Sometimes when I walked onto the court, I could feel the eyes on me. People waiting, judging, doubting. And that's when the old silence returned. But it didn't scare me anymore. It fueled me. Because I had lived with silence for so long that it became my home. Pressure didn't crush me. It reminded me who I was. I had already faced something harder, the nights alone when no one believed. So when the lights came on and the world was watching, I felt peace. Because I had already fought my hardest battles in the dark. They used to ask, don't you get tired? Of course I did. But fatigue doesn't stop warriors. It sharpens them. You learn to play through exhaustion, through pain, through doubt. You stop saying I can't and start whispering, watch me. That's what loneliness teaches you, resilience. The ability to keep moving when everything tells you to stop. And that's why I never needed a crowd. Because once you master your inner world, the outer world can't break you. Every win I ever had was already decided long before the game began. In those unseen moments, in that lonely grind, the scoreboard just reflected what the silence had already written. The world only saw the results. I lived the process. That's why my confidence wasn't arrogance. It was evidence. I had earned it alone, rep by rep, hour by hour. Confidence built from silence never breaks because it wasn't borrowed from anyone. It was forged in solitude, in the fire of repetition and belief. And you know what's beautiful? When your work finally starts speaking, it doesn't whisper, it roars. People who once ignored you suddenly start listening. Those who doubted start quoting your words. Those who mocked your focus start calling it vision. That's when you realize you never needed validation. You needed patience. You needed the courage to stay when others left, the discipline to keep building when no one cared. Because in the end, the world always catches up to the ones who don't quit. The loner inside me never died. It evolved. It became the core of everything I did. Even when I stood in packed arenas, I still felt that silence. I carried it with me because that's where I came from. That's where I learned who I was. The crowd might cheer, but deep down, I still hear that quiet gym, that ball bouncing, that voice whispering, you're not there yet. And honestly, I hope I never get there because the chase, the endless pursuit, that's what keeps me alive. That's the secret most people never understand. Greatness isn't the destinations. It's a dialogue between you and your work, your pain and your purpose, your silence and your sound. Didn't set out to be famous. I set out to be better every single day. Fame just followed the echoes of that work. Never spoke to be heard. I worked to be remembered. And when I look around now, I realize I was never really alone. The silence was always with me. The pain, the grind, the discipline, they were my companions. They built me. They shaped me. And when the world finally looked, they saw what the silence had been sculpting all along. So when people say you were a loner, I smile. Because being alone is not a weakness. It's the birthplace of strength. It's where you stop pretending and start becoming. And if you can learn to love that space, that quiet, that fight, that endless repetition, then nothing and no one can stop you. Because your work will always speak, louder than the noise, louder than the crowd, louder than the doubt, always. There comes a time when the noise fades again, and you realize legacy isn't built in the moment people cheer. It's built in what you leave behind when the cheering stops. The applause ends, the lights go out, the cameras turn away, and all that's left is what you did, who you were, and the work that carries your name. That's when silence returns, not as loneliness, but as reflection. The same silence that once tested you now holds your story. I learned that legacy is not about how loud the world says your name. It's about how long it echoes after you're gone. You can't control who remembers you, but you can control what you give them to remember. Every drop of sweat, every sacrifice, every night you chose work over comfort, that becomes your voice when you're no longer there to speak. That's why I worked the way I did, because I wanted my effort to outlive me. People think legacy is carved in marble or written in history books, but it's not. It's written in moments, in how you treat others, in how you show up when you're tired, and how you respond when no one believes. Every moment you stay disciplined when no one's watching, you build a wall of respect that time can't break. That's the real immortality, to leave behind something that continues to inspire, to move, to push others forward, even when you're no longer here. The truth is, greatness was never about trophies. Trophies rust, records break, fame fades. But impact, that stays. Impact is what happens when your work touches another person's heart. When someone somewhere picks up the ball, the pen, the brush, the dream, because you showed them it was possible. That's the power of legacy. You don't build it shouting, you build it working, quietly, consistently, fearlessly. I spent years chasing perfection, but I found purpose instead. Purpose doesn't end when you retire. It doesn't fade when the spotlight moves. Purpose keeps you hungry long after success tries to make you full. It's what wakes you up in the morning, even when the world says you've done enough, because there's no enough for someone who's driven by something bigger than themselves. The loner in me understood that. The silence in me still whispers it every day. Keep building, keep teaching, keep giving. You start to realize that legacy isn't about you at all. It's about what you give, about how you use your gift to elevate others. The same way pain sharpened you, your story becomes the light that guides someone else through their own darkness. That's how greatness multiplies. You light a flame in someone else without losing your own fire. That's how you live forever, not through fame, but through influence. There's a strange peace that comes when you've given everything, when you know you've emptied yourself completely into your craft, your life, your purpose. You stop needing validation. You stop needing to prove anything. You just exist in the truth of your effort. That's the beauty of mastery. Not that you've conquered the world, but that you've conquered yourself. You've faced your fears, your doubts, your limits, and you've kept going anyway. And maybe that's the lesson the loner learns before anyone else. That fulfillment isn't found in crowds, but in contribution. It's not about being seen. It's about making something worth seeing. When I stood alone in those empty gyms, I wasn't just practicing for a game. I was preparing to leave something behind. A mindset, a standard, a belief system built on discipline and self-trust. Something that could outlive the body that built it. Every generation needs proof that impossible things can be done. That's why you give everything. That's why you keep working even when you've already won. Because someone is watching. A kid who's scared, a dreamer who's doubting, a believer who's breaking. And maybe your story becomes the thing that reminds them not to quit. Maybe your silence becomes their courage. That's the gift the lonely hours give. They make your struggle a map for someone else's survival. People often ask, was it worth it? Every sacrifice, every lonely night, every moment of pain, was it worth it? My answer is simple. If your purpose is real, the pain is never wasted. Every scar carries a story that someone else needs to hear. Every failure becomes a lesson that someone else will live by. The work doesn't just build you, it builds others through you. That's legacy. Here's the truth. One day, you'll hang up your jersey, close the notebook, turn off the lights and walk away. The world will move on. That's how it's supposed to be. But if you did it right, the lessons won't fade. Your energy, your ethic, your fire, they'll live in the people who watched you, the ones you inspired, the ones who believe because you showed them belief in motion. That's how immortality feels. Not loud, not dramatic, but endless. There's a beauty in knowing that you've done all you could, that every drop of potential was poured out, that the silence that started your journey also finishes it, not empty, but full of echoes, full of meaning, full of life. And when that final silence comes, you don't fear it because you know your work is still speaking. The loner becomes a legend not because he was special, but because he never stopped listening to that small, relentless voice inside, the one that said, keep going. And that's what I want you to remember. Don't run from your solitude. Don't fear your silence. Use it, build in it, bleed in it. Because one day your silence will become someone else's anthem. Your work will speak when you're no longer here to explain it. And it will say loudly, endlessly, this is what discipline sounds like. When I think of it now, I smile. I was a loner, yes, but that loneliness gave birth to everything. It gave me hunger. I should have been tired. It gave me peace when I should have felt pressure. It gave me meaning when the world only saw madness. And when the story ends, the only thing that truly matters is that I never stopped. I never stopped believing. I never stopped working. I never stopped giving. Because my work, my truth, was always louder than any crowd.